All right then. Okay. Well, first I want to start with why. Why do I want to do this? Right. Um, you've got data in your Kafka topic, and more often than not, it's not the shape that you want it to be in. Right. You've maybe got one field in there that you want to sync, or you need to drop some fields, or you need to even do some enrichments on it. Right. Because it's all about this data cleansing and the data transformation that is also a constant in everything we do. So I want to basically be able to do event level transformations here. I'm not talking about aggregations. I'm not talking about joining the data. More simple at each raw level, being able to manipulate the data and then either put it somewhere or with the sync and with the source actually write it back into Kafka. So what are my options? I can either write some code, Java code. I haven't done that for a long time, or I could actually maybe use one of the lenses connectors. So we have a thing called Kafka Connect Query Language in our connectors, not all of the connectors. Or I can maybe use one of the lenses SQL processors to do that. So if you're not familiar with it, it's worth checking them out. Or maybe I could use an SMT. So I'll briefly, I'll discard the first option because I don't want to write any code. And if we go to the next slide, Mateus, we can have a look briefly at what Kafka Connect is. So this is effectively it's a parser that we put into our connectors. We wrote it a long time ago, maybe 2016, when we were commissioned to build a connector for a very famous Kafka company, because we wanted to simplify all the configuration. So effectively, you can have something like this: insert into bucket, select your fields from topics A. Now, remember it's just a parser, so each connector has to then take that information and decide what it's going to do. So it's not implemented in all the connectors, not even implemented in all of the lenses connectors. But it does have some support for like cherry picking some fields, but there's no support for complex types. So it does its job, but in some cases it's also a bit limiting. So what's my other options? The SQL processors, right? So if you don't know about these, this is part of the SQL engine that lenses have. There's two components to the SQL engine. One is snapshotting, which is basically point in time queries like a relational database. Fire the query, get results. So if you're familiar with lenses, you go into the Explore screen or the SQL Studio, you're using the SQL snapshot engine. But there's another part of it, the SQL processors. And basically here, these are for joining, aggregating, filtering data. So what we do is you can create them, you type a bit of SQL, we'll deploy it for you, and we'll then monitor it for you. And these are like little apps that are running outside of lenses, inside of Kubernetes, so continually reading and writing back to Kafka. All very great, but it means I've got an extra app to deploy. Everyone's microservices is great, but there's more complexities, and I'm just reading and writing back to Kafka here effectively. More topics to manage, more load on my system, and maybe if I just want to concatenate a field or drop a field, it can be overkill. So if we go to the next slide, which is what we're going to talk about, single message transforms. So what are they? Well, effectively, they're just like a plugin, just like a connector is a plugin actually in for the Kafka Connect workers. You also have secret providers, the other type of plugins. So they're mostly, on the whole, designed to work with any connector. There are a few exceptions out there. There are some, for example, for Debezium, which are designed to work for that, for routing the topics. But there are a large number available, mostly from Apache Kafka. And like you say, most of these are around field selection, dropping fields, adding fields, casting, or adding to the headers, right? You can write your own if you want to. So we have a lot of people that do that, write their own connectors. All our connectors work them as well. Maybe you need to do some custom work inside of your connector. Maybe you want to do vector embedding inside an SMT and plug it into Connect. What about that for an idea? So you can write your own. What you do is you basically compile it, drop it into the class path of the worker using the plugins path directory, and there it's available to use. So if we go to the next slide and just a bit more on how they actually work and where they fit, right? So you can use them both with the source and the sync connectors. But it's important to note that for the source side, it's happened after your connector. So in Kafka Connect, if you've written a connector, you basically hand a set of records back to the framework for the source connectors, and then it's going to go through the SMT, go through the converter, then be written to Kafka. On the way out, on your sync side of it, it's going to hit the converter inside of Kafka Connect. It's going to then go through your SMT to do all the logic. Then it's handed to your connector, and then you do the work, whatever you've done inside of your connector. So that's how they work. So source connectors apply after the records are given to Connect, and for the sync, it happens before they're given to your connector. Why is that important? Because if you want to do something in your sync connector and write it off to S3, you want your sync connector just to not have that logic in it. It's going to have the records given to it in the task, and it can, with the extra fields, the concatenation, whatever you've done, and then you can write it off to whatever system you're writing to. So if we have a look at the next slide, we have some SMTs as well, right? These are all open source. They're in our open source GitHub repository. You can find them there. And our goal here was to basically offer fine-grained partitioning, especially for the S3 connector we have for the sync and source, for the Google Cloud Storage that we have, source and sync, the Azure Data Lake where we have a sync, a source is coming, to allow us to do various different partitioning strategies. So what it is, these are focused on basically adding fields into the headers of the record. Why did we do the headers? Because we want to optimize, right? We don't want to have to continually change the payload, deserializing it, manipulating. It's more overhead there. So what we do here is we push it into the header. And then remember on the sync side, it's then available to the, let's say, the S3 source, sync, and then we can use that to partition out the records. So there's a number of them. There's all various like deviations of them, but you can either inject the record timestamp. So that's the record timestamp from the Kafka record. You can insert wall clocks, or you could take a field from the payload and insert it as the header. So we have one example of that there. So next slide, please. Configuring SMTs. Relatively straightforward. You need to give it a name. In this case, transforms equals my SMT. It has to have a class, right? That's your implementation of the transformation that you want to do, right? So therefore you do transformations.mysmt.type my class. And then you have the configurations, and that changes. It depends what the SMT is that you have there. So there's various different options for them. So obviously a more concrete example with a to-do in it. We have transforms alias, and then the alias is repeated all the way down, starting with the type. In this case, we've got a header.name, which is an option. That's the name of the key that's going to be inserted into the header. And then the format type here, I think, is basically string. And then the format of the date that we want to put into that header. So there's various different examples. Again, you can find them in our GitHub repo, and there's some documentation in there for all the different use cases you can have. So next slide, please. And this is what we're actually going to demo then. So I'm going to hand it back to Mateus. So we're going to do the sync, insert the wall clock, so add a record into the header, which represents the system time, and have our Google storage sync connector write it off and partition it into GCP.
Thanks.
Yes.
Thanks, yes, amazing. And one thing that I like to highlight what you say, that amazing presentation. And what I'm gonna show you is based on the thing I call the protocol simple. I always like to say that let's start simple. I want to show something that it's simple to do, the power of SMT. So let's start like slow, not taking too much like on it. But thanks, Adrian. Thanks for everything. It's amazing. First, I'm going to show my storage. Okay, I have two bays of data. I have the default one. I have the topic being synced. The whole idea is a topic name by default, and then I have my partitions, and in my partitions, I have my data. But then, again, a request comes and say, okay, this is not good for me. I have to scatter over the partitions, and I need the data to be shaped actually on the fly. I want when I start to upload the files, the structure of the files on the Kafka Connect has to be on year, month, and day. That makes my life easier. Again, I want to make it easier. So let's go into our connector. Again, with lenses, connectors are going to deploy through lenses because it's much easier. I'm going to sync GCP storage sync connector. And one thing I'm going to do first is I'm going to highlight this two first. Don't worry about the error, but that's it. My KSQL query that I want to use, I want to insert into my storage, my bucket account. Like Andrew explained, this makes it much easier for us to adapt, to automate, because we have a variety of connectors that can use this type of language. So I know that I'm going to search into, I'm going to use this bucket, I'm going to insert, select, I'm going to select, start everything from the topic, partition by my wall clock. But this does exist for the first part, because I don't have there's a native on SMT. That's why I need the SMT. So like Andrew explained, transform, I'm going to call insert format and then the wall clock, and then I'm going to start to play with my data. So I use the timestamp as my field that I'm going to work with, the format pattern that I want to use, and I'm going to use the wall clock transformation to do it. So I'm going to format, I'm going to create the field, and I'm going to add here. So my partition now is wall clock here on the header. So it's header.wall clock. I'm going to store like in a simple way. So I'm going to store it in JSON because my data is in JSON. They want as raw as possible. So I'm going to give them as they want. And I'm going to flush this in 10 and 10, maybe 100, 100 rows. Doesn't matter in this case. Okay, so let me pick it up, the complete connect. Because besides that is all about the connector configuration. So I'm not going to delve into this one. So let me just confirm if I don't have the same connector with the same name. So I like to use, by the end of the connector, I like to use a UID. That's thing that I like to do. There's no condition this. And I'm going to create this guy. Then just confirm if I'm creating the correct one. Actually, this one is creating the correct folder. I'm just creating the correct folder because this, if not, it's going to be like crazy. Let me do this again. Just good because you guys can see it twice. So what I'm going to do is just change the folder name on my here. I'm going to call SMT because this way more easy. SMT. This and go. Let's use the same. And I'm using the JSON for access the GCS, so that's why I have this big JSON. It can be file, can be whatever I want to do. So I'm gonna wait a little bit. Again, let's fingers crossed because I test this 100 times. I have this running 100 times. But again, let's hope that no fat finger happens here. So it starts to read the records. And again, let's see how is on my storage. So I go to my storage, live stream orders. Now it has to create a call SMT folder. SMT folder is here. And now he's create base year, month, and day. So everything that happens during the timestamp is going to be in these folders. You're going to continuous create folders based on this. So Andrew, I think it's now good for us to, that's a demo. That's what I would like to show. Easy. If you see, again, I want to highlight, I didn't do too much lines of code. Let's just pause here, because there's a lot of data on this topic. I just want to highlight this. With this, I shape my data. I create a new, on the headers, a new field, and I just push the data using that field on the partitions, on partitioning data based on my timestamp into GCS. So I think, and I hope we have questions. Guys, we have Andrew here, so SMT, questions.
Yeah. Well, I see Guillaume, that's one. So pipelining, yeah, you can pipeline the SMTs, you can chain them together. So you could have one that converts to uppercase and the next one lowercase. You can do that. You can chain them all together.
Yeah, I think, Andrew, one of my point of view, one of the greatest things of SMT, because I don't need to worry about the application side. I can just shape the data as I want, both source and sink, and I can provide the data as need to be in, of course, in the simple way on Kafka, right?
Yeah, well, it's the whole thing about connector. It's pluggable, right? So you write the connector once, you can do the connector, and then the secret providers are also pluggable. We also have the secret providers. Please use them. Don't leak secrets. And then you've got the SMT, so you can write the logic once and then reuse it with a bit of configuration. Any more questions? What's the question? How do we configure IAM roles, same as in AWS, for the Lenses GCP connector? I think it will work the same way.
Yeah, exactly the same way. The same way.
So if it's running, it's got the profile, it'll do the default credential toolchain and pick it up. And could we put all this logic into KSQL? We could, but like I said, connectors pluggable, so we'd have to re-implement it in all the connectors. Obviously, we can work that out in the Lenses connectors, but it wouldn't work for all the other connectors out there as well. So whilst KSQL is very beneficial, simplifies what you want to pick out as well. The pluggable nature of Kafka Connect here and the SMTs means we can get more reuse for the wider community than just simply doing it in our own parser. And remember, KSQL is just to parse. It doesn't actually implement any logic. It's entirely up to the individual connector what it does with that information. Any more questions about anything to do with Lenses? Doesn't have to be SMTs, Kafka Connect, SQL processes, GitOps, anything. No, I'm not very popular then, obviously.
No, right. People should, no, not that popular. People are shy. They are shy.
Yeah, all right then. Last chance, because I'm going to go for a cup of tea soon.
Hello, can I ask you a quick question?
Yeah.
Okay, I mean, probably this is related to Lenses alone and not related to this current topic. I've been working with Lenses integration And what I see is I have the lenses running in Confluent CFK. Everything is up and running, and the service is up and running. But when I go to the URL, I won't be able to see the console coming up. I just checked up with the IT and submitted a firewall. They said like everything is through, but I still not be able to be successful in getting the lenses UI coming up. So is there any specific reason? If you could just give me some guidance, that would be a great help.
Well, first of all, I think also we need the WebSockets to be open as well. So sometimes we see that people don't open up the WebSockets through their proxy, which can often be a case. But yeah, there's a lot. I mean, maybe if we've got a support ticket, we can have a look at it. But it's
Okay. Is there any kind of a logs where it really pointed me like, okay, this is a kind of a blocked or denied? Because when I looked into the firewall aspect, it has been in place. That's what I verified. But however, uh, I mean, I want to see a specific error where I can dig deep into and investigate further. So
well, I think you'd have to look in the lenses logs to see if you're actually getting any requests coming in.
no. The thing is, the lenses UI itself is not coming up. That's a problem.
But is lenses up itself? I mean, that's what I'm saying. So if we look at the lenses logs, the logs of
Okay.
lenses, has lenses come up? Is it up?
Oh.
Which is one
Okay.
thing. And then if you can't access it, the UI, that's another thing. Quite often that's a misconfiguration in a firewall or a proxy somewhere. But first, check if lenses is up itself.
Exactly. Interestingly, the pod is up and running. The services is also up and running with no error. When I try to describe and see the pod logs, everything seems to be good from that end. But from the UI perspective, it's not showing up. So that's kind of I got kind of blocked. Okay. What could be happening other than that? So just a thought, if there is anything, I just want to see if there's any kind of scenario you have encountered. So that will be a good learning.
Yeah, I mean, yes, I think you mentioned the pod, so I assume you're in Kubernetes, so I would just check your ingress is working to make sure that it's all routed correctly. And because it's HTTP endpoint, right, so you want the ingress to come in by your load balancer to hit your service, which will then route to lenses. But first, make sure lenses is up. Make sure in the logs it should be saying that he's listening and he's ready to accept incoming requests.
Okay.
That'd be the first thing, and then if not, it's something in the network layer.
Okay. Thank you very much, Andrew. I'll just look into that further. Thank you. Okay. That's a great help.
Okay.
All right.
I think we don't have any more questions, but again, guys, jump in the community. If you're shy during the live, don't worry. We're going to be on the Slack. You can call us the private, you can call us in the channel. We're going to be more than, it's going to be a great pleasure to be in touch, to be talking to you guys. So the Slack community is going to be linked here. We have as well Ask Marios, we have other places. So please jump in the community, and the next live is gonna be about CI/CD with Kafka. So you're gonna have something pretty amazing for you guys to know. I hope I see familiar faces or names, actually not see faces, but names here. And thank Andrew for everyone. Thank Lance's team for everything. It's amazing to have you guys here.